don't think there was a less controversial opinion in my teen years than that Batman and Robin was one of the worst movies ever made.
I'm sorry, what? A less controversial...
I don't think there was a less
Yeah,
controversial
true.
opinion in my teen years than that Batman and Robin was one of the worst movies ever made.
How is it controversial?
No. What he's saying is like it wasn't controversial to say that it was one of the last
Oh,
movies.
thanks. You should have wrote this intro.
That was essentially taken as fact. The film
I hate
wrong
when
with
Robin
Hollywood.
screams.
An overproduced and underwritten spectacle, which reduced The Dark Knight to his most shallow and kiddie elements.
Okay.
A film more concerned with cramming as many toys into frame as possible,
Yeah.
rather than telling a story. Releasing in
Yeah.
1997 at the dawn of the internet age, when nerd culture was beginning to mobilize around fan sites and message
Reynolds,
boards,
hello.
only intensified.
You know this guy?
Oh yeah, this was I didn't know that Ain't It Cool News is important anymore, but there was a time
No.
in the early 2000s where it was sort of this sort of lightning rod.
Yeah.
And there were all these kind of like bratty, kind of young 20-something reviewers, some of which were really great. There was actually one really good one called Vern, who goes by the Outlawed Vern, like that's his name. But yeah, Harry Knowles was kind of ran ain'titcoolnews.com and did a massive. Oh, it might not have even been him. It might have been someone else reviewing it.
Yeah.
But they did like a really nasty takedown of Batman and Robin, where they compared it to coming out of the cinema to being a victim of the Hiroshima bombing. So it was that kind of like,
Boo frickety
over the top kind of reviewing. And for a while he was like, there were loads of kind of film directors who sucked up to him,
Yeah.
I'm sure Eli Roth and Robert Rodriguez and like people like that. But then he sort of there was a whole podcast that you could go into about his downfall and the downfall of that channel, that website. But yeah, they were one of the first people to hate this movie on the internet, and sort of everyone rallied around them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was watching Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back the other night, and at the end, like, they're coming out of their own movie, the Blunt Man and Chronic movie. Don't talk over me, please. They're coming out of the Blunt Man and Chronic movie, and they're just like, that was worse than Clash of the Titans, or like, that was Batman and Robin all over again. And Kevin Smith wrote the movies. I think that was, I bet Kevin Smith watched this, or he probably read this interview.
Yeah.
was beginning to mobilize around fan sites and message boards, only intensified the vitriol against the film.
Yep.
By the 2000s, when performative nerd outrage was in real against.
Have you watched the Angry Nintendo Nerd stuff?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I still will watch his stuff, and I know a lot of people have dropped off, but yeah, he's a fun guy.
Oh, you watch his new stuff. I hate you now. And I used his classic name, the name he originally used in like 2004 to 2006. Oh man.
Yeah.
This one in particular, Bugs Bunny's Birthday Blowout, was amazing.
The 2000s, when performative nerd outrage was an in vogue style in internet review culture, Batman and Robin was a popular punching bag.
Yep.
Bat! Credit card!
I don't want to watch. Oh, thank God he cut away from that. Because, I can't get Doug Walker's stupid voice out of my head sometimes when I'm watching Batman and Robin. And just a bit, it kind of... I mean, I was revisiting his Nostalgia Critic video the other day, and it's still funny. But, yeah, I don't like his voice when he's screaming about the credit card.
Yeah.
I like the credit card gag. I still need to order my Bat credit card off the internet. They actually make those.
I can't say I was above such behavior. In fact, if anything, I was a bigger hater than most. The general consensus was that, while Batman and Robin sucked, Joel Schumacher's preceding Batman film, Batman Forever, was at least pretty decent.
If there's anybody watching this...
We've all seen this a million times. Oh, well, we've never heard it in 2 times speed, have we?
That, let's say, loved Batman Forever, and went into Batman and Robin with great anticipation. If I disappointed them in any way, then I really want to apologize, because it wasn't my intention.
And that never made much sense to
me. Yeah. Gosh, there's so many filmmakers. Like, I was at work the other night and was just listening to a Batman and Robin documentary, like just to pass the time, and someone in the comments was like, Joel didn't have to apologize for this movie. His intentions were good, but the commenter compared it to Star Wars: The Last Jedi, and how the vitriol that Rian Johnson had while making it, I suppose, and how he was almost trolling Star Wars fans, was so completely different than the intentions of Schumacher, which is he was just out to make a good film. And by the way, we haven't got an apology for The Last Jedi. That's an even bigger sin. So props to Joel.
To me, because to my...
I want to apologize, because it wasn't my intention.
And that never made much sense to me, because to my eyes, Batman Forever was every bit the trash fire Batman and Robin was.
Oh, come on. I thought he was...
Got 1 hour to go, so hopefully he's going to turn it around.
He will, but just a minute ago, he was like, Forever is decent.
The general consensus was that, while Batman and Robin's...
Okay, that's general consensus.
...sucked, Joel Schumacher's preceding Batman film, Batman Forever, was at least pretty decent.
Yeah. Okay, so he's saying the consensus was that, but then he goes on to be...
Yep.
And that never made much sense to me, because to my eyes, Batman Forever was every bit the trash fire Batman and Robin was. I mean, they're basically the same movie. They both open with a suit-up montage which culminates with the full reveal of the new Batman actor and the new Batmobile. Both scenes also end with a joke involving food.
Can I persuade you to take a sandwich with you, sir?
I'll get drive-through.
Don't wait up, Al. I'll cancel the pizza.
We then get Batman riding out into the night as Commissioner Gordon briefs him about a supervillain in the midst of a crime.
But the Gordon thing happens at the scene of the crime and Forever. Oh, whatever.
Riding out into the night as Commissioner Gordon briefs him about a supervillain in the midst of a crime, leading to a spectacular action scene where the villain narrowly escapes. The other major supervillain begins as a mild-mannered nerd who turns evil after a trauma, killing a colleague and donning a green costume. This character pitches a mad scientist plan to Bruce Wayne, which is rejected, with Bruce and Batman becoming a target of the character's wrath. Along the way, a new character with a penchant for motorcycles arrives at Wayne Manor and is initially hostile, but eventually discovers...
No, absolutely not. Batgirl's like, oh, I'd love to stay. These are 2 completely different characters. I'm sorry, what does he say?
...for motorcycles arrives at Wayne Manor and is initially hostile.
So the Batman and Robin scene on the right there is a lot later. She's initially very sweet. She turns over a new leaf. The clip he's showing on the right is after Dick saves her from falling. That's after they have their race, and she's discussing Alfred's condition, and she's basically saying, I want to take Alfred away from this awful life you've subjected him to, but, close enough.
But eventually discovers the Batcave and vows to become an ally to Batman. We climax on a massive action scene where the heroes overcome the villains, cut to a brief glimpse of Arkham Asylum, and a final image of the heroes running in silhouette together as the bat signal shines bright in the background. And this is...
Hang on a minute. The lighting's way different between these 2.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. I'd never realized. I always thought they looked kind of the same.
And this is to say nothing of the many aesthetic similarities the films share. Indeed, all of the things I hated about Schumacher's second Bat flick, the broad performances, the campy tone, the excessive neon visuals, were all present in his first.
Pretty much,
Batman Forever may not have sucked as loudly as Batman and Robin, but it sucked in all the same ways. Or at least, that's what I thought at the time. But the tide seems to be shifting for Schumacher's Batman movies. More and more voices have emerged suggesting that maybe these movies aren't so bad after all.
The original cut of Batman Forever was more like Returns. The theatrical is more like Batman and Robin.
Yeah.
Maybe they're actually pretty good. Hell, maybe they're even great. Maybe they even make a valuable contribution to Batman and to cinema. You need only take a look on Letterboxd to see what I'm talking about.
Well, let's see here. Yeah, pretty mediocre reviews for Forever, and almost as good on Batman and Robin's side, but it is below a 2 out of 5, so that's a bummer. Or is this out of 10? No, it's out of 5. All right. They got the taglines on there too. Both of them have the word courage. I always kind of found the taglines to be somewhat weak for both the films.
Yeah, they're not great.
Courage, truth, Batman Forever. I think the one for Forever would have been more impactful had the original plot of the movie still been intact.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
About truth, yeah, and finding out the truth, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And, can you kind of remind me why it was called Batman Forever in the original script?
Why it was called it, I guess. Good question, because it seems like the kind of thing you'd say for your fourth movie, not your third movie. But yeah, I think The Bachelors just wrote it as Batman 3, and then obviously the idea is, Batman kind of wants to quit, or does sort of like quit 3/4 of the way through. So I guess kind of calling it Batman Forever makes it sound like, he's sort of come to the realization that he can't ever quit being Batman. He is Batman forever.
Yeah. And, in the final film, I didn't get that impression. It's just a whole lot more clear in the Schumacher version. And by that I mean, it made more sense when I saw the deleted scenes. And he comes out of that cave and he sees Alfred and he's like, I'm Batman. Yeah.
Forever.
I'm Batman.
Is what he should have said. But yeah.
Okay, Batman and Robin's tagline. Is it any good?
Strength now, courage always, family above all.
I think it would have been fine with family above all. But the strength and courage, it's kind of generic.
Yeah,
there's no scene of Robin like having to show courage in the face of like something really scary.
No.
I don't know why I'm using Robin as an example. The thing is though, they're both like these fearless daredevils. So I don't know why. I don't see how the title is very apt. Like, what if Scarecrow was the villain and they like gassed Batman and Robin? Then like courage always would be really, because it's like that scene when they're going down the arm of the statue in their vehicles. Like in real life, that would be the scariest shit ever. And if they caught a whiff of like Scarecrow's like fear dust and they look down and they just like freak out, then the courage always, strength now tagline would be cool. Just, I don't know, in the face of fear, I guess.
Average user rating is still pretty low, especially for Batman and Robin. But saunter over to the popular reviews and you'll find tons of raves. How did we go from one of the most hated films of the last 30 years to being so beloved to inspire...
Hey, I read that book for the channel.
Yeah.
And
it's
Neil's, yeah, you're mentioned, and your channel is mentioned in that book.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
When did you first learn about that? Did you?
I think he emailed me to check some stuff. So yeah, he emailed me like about 6 months before it came out. I think it's coming out in paperback actually this summer.
Yeah, it will actually. Cool. Yeah, it's 30th anniversary of the film, so
yeah,
get a nice paperback. I have a hardback copy because that's all that was available, and yeah, it was pricey.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Inspire an academic book arguing its virtues? Well, to state an obvious answer, nostalgia. The Schumacher Batman movies are about 30 years old at this point, after all, meaning a whole generation of adults were once children who grew up with these movies.
And this podcast we're doing, it's a living example of that. We're both old-ass men who, had the toys and were part of the whole Batmania thing. So Neil, what year were you born?
83.
Whoa,
so I was 11 when Forever came out, and then I guess 13 with Batman and Robin.
I'm from 91, so I'm like substantially younger.
This is something I can personally attest to. Before I was a snot-nosed teenager who thought these were...
And I think, I've seen a couple of his videos now, and I think he's like a mid-90s kid or something.
Okay.
Yeah, I know he's a little younger than us, but yeah, he's still got the nostalgia and, adult making a video about a somewhat nostalgic series of films.
The worst movies ever? I was a tiny child who thought they were the best movies ever. I distinctly remember...
And yeah, I thought these movies were awesome at the time, and I still do, but yeah,
I'm going to be interested to see where he goes with it, but yeah, I would say sort of like it's not just a case of like, I enjoyed that as a kid. I would also say it's about like movies aren't made like this, they don't look like this, they don't feel like this anymore.
No.
Sets aren't massive practical things, comic book movies aren't big and colourful.
It's true.
Movies aren't particularly like light and kind of I'm trying to think of the right word. I don't want to use the word camp, I want to use like another word. But
Corn.
like they have
Cornball
fun with the material and aren't just sort of like embarrassed by it.
Yeah, everything got a little earnest after 2005 with the Nolan film, which I think was suitable for Batman. But like, what a film! I've never seen the whole thing, but I have seen lots of reviews on Man of Steel, and I think they just totally went in the wrong direction in terms of tone and aesthetic. That wasn't right for Superman. But these Batman films were so successful, and like nerds were raving about The Dark Knight that like the Richard Donner version of Superman is kind of my preferred direction and tone for that character and that world. And I didn't like it when they went a little darker. Like, I think Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns was so kind of influential, especially on Zack Snyder. That's the direction Snyder went with the whole like Snyder-verse. I wanted more contrast of tones when Batman and Superman appeared on screen in the same movie. But it's just like Superman was too much like Batman.
Yeah, that's a fair accusation to throw at Man of Steel. I think it was a case of The Dark Knight did so well, it was like, we got to apply the same. It's like any successful thing. Once something's successful, you want to apply the same thing to all your other properties that you have in your thing. So yeah, they definitely were like, let's do The Dark Knight, but with Superman. And it didn't. I, as a fan of Zack's movies, I fully admit it didn't work for a lot of people.
Yeah,
I found it sort of fascinating because it was such an odd clash.
Yeah,
but yeah.
The Schumacher films in particular are fascinating to me as an adult because of the clash of tones and somewhat troubled productions. I suppose production went smooth for all four of these films. It's just looking back.
I think so.
Yeah, looking back, it's just like what went wrong in a lot of places. The productions of these films are very interesting to me and are very well documented. And yeah, it's very fun to learn about and talk about.
Batman and Robin, they finished 2 weeks under.
Yeah.
Like they wrapped up early.
2 weeks ahead of schedule. Yeah.
2 weeks ahead of schedule.
The movie's so rushed. God damn it. Yeah.
It is. This morning opening the Batman Legacy VHS collection and spending the rest of the day excitedly watching the tapes in reverse chronological order. Meaning, I started with the Schumacher movies because as a kid, those were the ones I was most excited to rewatch. That sort of lingering affection is potent and cherished with age. But I don't think it's just recollection of fond memories from youth informing the reclamation efforts. Time has been oddly kind to Schumacher's Batman, especially compared to modern superhero movie standards. Think the modern superhero movie is overwhelmingly gray and...
it's a good example, this... we go from this to this, and it's like...
Yeah. 9 days.
Maybe it's a bad example. Like, maybe there's other parts of this film that... I don't know, but... yeah. It's...
Yeah.
They're, I haven't really seen Thor, Love and Thunder, but the movie was referenced in Tomasz Zagluski's book, Neon Night Forever, and he said that the film was criticized for, I guess the tone was too light, and it was compared to Batman and Robin. And, other movies, like the one we're looking at right here, it looks a certain way because the Schumacher-verse is so hated and so controversial that they want to go in the complete opposite direction, I think.
I guess it's hard when you're like translating. Something can be like bright and colorful in a comic book, but it can still have a certain tone and weight to it. Whereas when you do something in live action and you make it bright and colorful, it feels like you're you feel a certain way about certain kind of looks to movies. And with Eternal, I haven't seen Eternals, but I can sort of see why they went with that aesthetic to try and sort of like offset all the kind of weirdness and the characters and the powers and everything. But at the same time, I feel it's a bit of a cheat, like you're embarrassed by the material and you're trying to
absolutely
get people to take it seriously.
Yeah.
Joel was never embarrassed by the material.
Yeah, he was absolutely fearless making his Batman movies. And embarrassed that's a great example. Thank you. And tons of filmmakers are embarrassed with the material these days. Just look at Crystal Dynamics, embarrassed to own the Tomb Raider license. And they go in this completely opposite direction of what Tomb Raider started as, in the 90s for the PlayStation. They want to rework the Lara Croft character and just make it something else. There's so many properties today. They're just embarrassed to own the license. So they go in their own direction, and it's like, hey, this is stupid. let's make it our own thing and call it Tomb Raider or call it Star Wars. And this is a rabbit hole I don't want to go down, though. So
let's keep moving.
Overwhelmingly gray and visually dull, here are vibrant splashes of color.
I like vibrancy in my films, so that's one of the reasons these films are rewatchable.
Want a little more sexuality in superhero romances? These films are so horny, they can hardly contain themselves. Hell, do you just wish more superhero movie scenes took place in actual spaces rather than vaguely defined green screen environments?
Yes.
Not only do Schumacher's Batman movies have sets, their sets are so big they had to be filmed in the hangar that once housed Howard Hughes' megaplane, the Spruce Goose. It's not mere nostalgia. Schumacher's Batman offers an experience other superhero movies just don't. And it's an experience other Batman movies don't offer either. You might think that's a good thing given the reputation Schumacher's films have for temporarily killing the franchise, but we're a long way from 1997. It was one thing to complain about Schumacher's camp in the 90s and 2000s, but at this point, we have so many movies about a dark and brooding Batman that it's become the dominant mode of the character. The Dark Knight is the default. In this context, a lighter take on the...
the default night. I'm going to start calling it that. The legacy of Nolan's second movie is... It'll never go away.
No.
God damn it. They're stuck with it.
Dark Knight is the default. In this context, a lighter take on the Caped Crusader, what Tomasz Zagluski termed the Neon Knight, is a more welcome alternative. And it must be stressed that a lot of the objection to Batman Forever, and especially Batman and Robin, wasn't strictly that they were light, or that they were kiddie, or even that they were camp. It's that they were gay. Schumacher...
What?
And especially Batman... And it must be stressed that a lot of the objection to Batman Forever...
A lot of the objection to Batman Forever is because it was gay? I'm sorry, this is kind of a hot take for me. What do you think about that statement?
Yeah, I can sort of see where he's coming from. Like, these two movies are beloved by the queer community, and there is a lot of sort of like reading into, with Joel being like an openly gay man, I think there was a lot of reading into the way that he made his characters.
Yeah, close-ups of the genitalia.
Close-ups of nipples and butts and stuff, but also there's a lot of gay readings of like, this is a guy who is troubled by what he gets up to at night, and is kind of wrestling two sides of his personality. There's lots of kind of queer readings into probably more Batman Forever than Batman and Robin, but it's all there if you want to find it. But I don't know. At the same time, I'm always of like two minds about, because I know Joel was quite often annoyed with people reading kind of gay metaphors into his movie. Like, there's a movie called Tigerland with Colin Farrell about two guys who are like training to go off to Vietnam, and people are like, "Oh, that's such a gay movie. It's so obviously like
stupid."
That
observation is very stupid. Continue.
Yeah, he was like, no, it's not. It's just it's about male bonding and friendship, and I think he did get a bit annoyed that people were constantly looking for the gayness in his movies.
Yeah. You said of two minds about. You said you were of two minds about, and I reached over to my little coin pouch. I picked up a quarter, and guess what year it's from?
A 95.
It is. Yeah, it's a 95 quarter. Yeah.
Excellent.
The wrath of Toss, the only true justice.
and especially Batman and Robin, wasn't strictly that they were light, or that they were kiddie, or even that they were camp. It's that they were gay. Schumacher took Tim Burton's gothic Nightmare City and soaked it in neon colors, glitter, and gaudy costumes.
What's that glitter from? That was a really brief shot, but what?
City and soaked it in neon colors, glitter.
What the hell is this from? Is this like...
Oh, is it the bike?
Oh, yeah,
it is.
Bike, yeah. It's the bike chase from Batman and Robin. I have heard a comment. I think this is on the Mahler EFAP commentary for Batman and Robin. And they asked, like, why are those barrels full of glitter? That doesn't make any sense.
Glitter and gaudy costumes. The stylings of classic noir giving way to drag show glamour. Batman himself was placed in tight rubber suits which accentuated male sexual form and given a male partner who lived with Bruce by day and dressed in tight rubber of his own to go adventuring with Batman by night.
And that's just, I mean, that's the dynamic duo. I don't see how that's a exclusive to Batman Forever and its sequel, but...
And these queer elements did not go unnoticed. From Roger Ebert describing the knowing chuckle of an audience during a close-up of Batman's ass, to the homophobic caricature referencing Joel Schumacher in an episode of Batman the Animated Series, queerness was explicit in the discourse on these movies, and often used as a pejorative.
Took your characters and turned them into one 90-minute long gay joke. It's like watching Batman and Robin again.
Those costumes come complete, with bat nipples and bat asses. Alright, y'all know what's coming.
The ambiguously gay duo.
The ambiguously gay duo.
Man, Batman and Robin was so gay. Reclamation of Schumacher's Batman is in part a reclamation of its queerness, now reconfigured as a point of pride. That the films are indeed gay, and that's part of what makes them great. At the very least, we can acknowledge now that much of the mockery these films received was homophobic in nature, something all the more shameful given Joel Schumacher.
Hey Neil, do you know anyone that didn't like Batman and Robin because of its, I don't know, homoeroticism?
No, but I mean, it not personally.
Not me either. Not one person.
But like a lot of the kind of hatred for it was focused on like the, you know, people's complaints will start with, why are the bat nipples? And it's like,
well, yeah, that's true.
Of all the points about the movie, why is like two tiny things that you barely see a huge deal beyond, you know? Why not talk about, you know, there's many flaws that probably both of the movies have.
Exactly.
Like, why always start with that?
Yeah, it's incredibly shallow to just start with and complain about, you know, the aesthetics of the costumes.
Have you seen that episode of the animated series they showed there?
Nope, never seen it.
It's called like Legends of the Dark Knight. It was from the '97 they sort of like redrew a lot of the animated series. They did like a slightly simplified design.
Oh,
yeah, Legends of the Dark Knight, and it's like 3 stories, and it's like 3 sets of kids, and they're all telling like different versions of what they think Batman is. So there's a Frank Miller one where they're like, oh, Batman has a girl sidekick and he's huge and muscly and he drives a tank.
That's a cool idea.
So that's like once. Yeah. And then another one is like, oh no, he's like bright and colourful, and it's like the 1950s kind of the Dick Sprang kind of like design. I can't remember what the third one is. But anyway, in the middle of there, all these kids who are having this conversation, this really sort of like effeminate, long-haired kid comes out and is like, is wearing has a feather boa around his neck. There's a big shop sign behind him that says Shoemaker, and he's like, "Oh, I think Batman's like really beautiful, and he drives a Batmobile up a wall." And everyone's like,
yeah.
ha, 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 ha. And they move on. It's not
my
great.
Batman. Oh, my Batman has nipples. If I say he has nipples, then my Batman's going to have nipples. If there's anybody that was disappointed by that, then I really want to apologize. You know,
it was such a sort of like barbed joke to throw into what was basically a kid's cartoon.
That's it's too fucking on the nose for me. It's like, gee, I wonder who this character is meant to look like. You know, let me just type in Joel. See, here, it's this character. Yeah. It's so fucking obvious.
And obviously, he's in front of like a shoe. He's in front of a shoemaker shop, but he's also sort of like he takes this feather boa off a shop mannequin. I don't know whether they're deliberately like that was like one of the first jobs I think Joel had was like working in department stores doing the mannequins in stores.
Damn, Harley Quinn's hot out of costume. Oh, what were we talking about? Oh, yeah, this silly gay character. Nevertheless, this is a brilliant idea for a Batman episode. That's a must-watch. I'll put that on my list.
This film's received was homophobic in nature, something all the more shameful given Joel Schumacher was himself an openly gay man and has aged much more poorly than the films themselves. More generally, the angry man yelling about how thing terrible style of online film criticism.
I'm physically cringing at this.
This is a parody.
Embarrassing and high.
This is a parody of like Angry Video. Doug Walker.
Yeah, he's wearing the tie, just like Doug. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good parody. Lord. I've seen it.
Doug, just quit.
Hindsight. These were grown adults hyperbolically raving about how bad entertainment, often made for children, was a grand travesty on par with like war crimes. It makes sense that the film and
this guy can go fuck himself, too.
Filmmaker which most bore the brunt of this era, the film that Harry Knowles once compared to the atomic bombing of Hiroshima, would be...
Oh, yeah. You were right, Neil. Nerd.
That committed to memory.
Yeah.
Rehabilitated. But are Batman Forever and Batman and Robin actually,
What do you think he's going to say? I thought he was going to say, "Are they that bad?" at first, but now I'm kind of leaning toward, "Are they that gay?" All right, I'm going with gay. You're going with bad. So let's see.
Yeah.
But are Batman Forever and Batman and Robin actually, good? I'll certainly grant that the hatred.
Okay, Neil was more or less correct on that one.
For these films was wildly hyperbolic, and that aspects of said hatred were also undeniably homophobic, but that doesn't mean the films are exempt from criticism.
I mean, no shit. No film's exempt from criticism. It's just like, I have different problems with these films than other people do. It's like missed opportunities, plot threads that I wish were expanded on. More screen time with Robin. Deleting Ivy from Batman and Robin. We'll kind of get into this when we got some. We're gonna do commentaries for both films eventually. Yeah. Get into more.
Grant that the films stand out when compared to the directions the modern superhero movie has gone, and that is noteworthy, but it's also not the same as being good. Ultimately, the only way to answer this question is to dive in for myself. I may have firmly been on Team Hater once upon a time, but it's been years since I've actually watched Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. With fresh eyes, who knows what I might find. I can't promise I won't still hate these films.
That's cute. He's doing the whole I can't promise, then he's got the scene of Robin saying I can't promise Will Harvey.
A man's gotta go his own way.
But I do swear to go in with as open a mind as possible. So grab your Batman Forever McDonald's glasses.
Have you collected all these mugs yet?
Oh, yeah. Those were a pretty early purchase. They were certainly not 99 cents when I bought them, but hey.
Yeah. I actually found a few years ago, it was like in 2020, I was at a video game store and they had vintage stuff, and I found the Two-Face one, and guess how much they were charging for it?
$20.
99 cents.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Nobody wanted that. I guess they thought
that's super common in America. They are really hard to come by in the UK. We didn't get them over here.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Two-Face one. The thing is, I never got the Robin one. I had the Batman one in the 90s. Like the Batman one was an actual McDonald's pickup when I was a child. Had that for 20 years. My mom eventually threw it away, and the Riddler and Two-Face ones came later. I found them in shops, and I got the Batman one back. Like, I found that as well, along with the Riddler one, on the same day. I was thrilled to find those. But, I moved out of my parents' house. My mom, helped me with my stuff. She shipped the Batman glasses to me, and the Batman one had damage. It was cracked pretty good, down the side of the handle.
I always thought they looked pretty indestructible to me.
Yeah, that
I've not tested.
Kind of upset me. Well, the thing is, they were shipped together, and so them clanging together, they're gonna get damaged. Yeah. Two-Face one is my favorite. The Robin one, I still haven't got.
Yeah, the Two-Face is my favorite as well. The flipping the coin and having that make the handle. Brilliant.
Brilliant. It's a nice idea on Riddler's cup that his cane is coming out of the image and that's the handle, but it's really uncomfortable to hold the Riddler cane. Yeah, I don't like that one as much.
Toast up some Batman and Robin Pop-Tarts and crank the seal and Smashing Pumpkins, because it's time to revisit Joel Schumacher's Batman.
Let's do it. This shot is fucking amazing, by the way.
It's a great shot.
Tonight's forecast. A freeze is coming.
I love that.
So how did we get Joel Schumacher's Batman in the first place?
Batman Returns.
Well, after 1989's Batman proved a gargantuan hit, Warner Brothers granted Tim Burton more creative control to stay on for the sequel. And the results were, from a corporate perspective,
shit.
Disappointing. Batman Returns was also technically a hit, but it was a clear step down from the first Batman's riches. While the film's violence and aggressive sexuality proved controversial with fast food chain partners and parents who found the film too dark for children. Can't imagine why. Warner with us.
Yeah, I have my main problem with Batman Returns. It isn't Danny DeVito, it's just the character, the Penguin. That's not to say Danny DeVito, it's his fault. He committed to the role, he's really good in it. It's the way the character is written, I'd like to fill her void. Naked, sexual charisma. This is terrible writing. In the sequel to Batman 1989, this is there's
so
it's
what you're saying is the issue is the character is horny.
I don't like. I mean, so there's that scene in his lair when Max Schreck is kidnapped, and we get that first scene with Penguin and Schreck. It just goes on for so long, and he pulls that hand out of a bag, and it just goes on for a long time, and there's ultimately the scene is just to provide some plot. That's the ultimate point of the scene. But it's just the scene I think of when, like, I have problems with the character and I just find him annoying. He's my least favorite villain in any of these.
Probably mine too.
Any of the four, yeah. The Batman Returns has the best villain, I think, of any of the films, and that's Michelle Pfeiffer. I'm sorry, I don't like... This character is kind of the main culprit in terms of upsetting audiences at the time. He's just so ghastly and over the top. It's not Danny DeVito's fault. There's some tweaks I would make to his dialogue and shit like that. And yeah, this nose biting scene, I'd take that out too. Yada yada
Imagine
yada.
why.
So.
Warner with us less keen on bringing back Burton for Batman 3. I think if Burton had really wanted to, he probably could have stayed on board as director, but evidently Tim did have other films he wanted to make and moved to a producer role on Batman Forever. By June of 1993, Warner had tapped Joel Schumacher to direct, which was a sensible choice. Films like The Lost Boys and Flatliners showed the man could handle moody yet fantastical escapism, but Schumacher's other films were also varied enough to indicate he was a competent journeyman that could follow the mandates of a studio. And indeed, the studio had a clear mandate for Batman Forever. Make it lighter and more family-friendly.
Oh, look at that set, dude. It's glorious. Man, I wish... Yeah, wouldn't it be fun to like walk around that place? Be an extra.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't know, it's like somewhere in Tokyo, there's got places like this. I mean, without a doubt, like lots of Tokyo streets look like this. So
make it lighter and more family-friendly. That's a task Schumacher sought to honor. And when the film went on to break opening weekend records, the mandate for Batman and Robin was to go even lighter and even more family-friendly still. For a lot of Batman fans, that was, in and of itself, sacrilege, and I get that impulse. I tend to prefer my Batman on the darker side too, but there's nothing inherently wrong with a lighthearted Batman.
Yeah.
We are talking about a comic book superhero initially created for children.
Hey Neil, are you familiar with Rob Ager?
The director?
No. He's a
British
film analyst, and he mentioned in one of his videos from a long time ago that the only Batman that he enjoys is the 1960s TV show. And he also did a funny review for The Dark Knight, which is... Yeah, he brought up a lot of great points of why he doesn't enjoy The Dark Knight, and how he has a lot of criticisms for Christian Bale in particular. And he mentioned how like Heath Ledger's Joker like gets all the best lines, and so that's interesting. He has some good things to say about them too, but yeah, he doesn't like the tone of the Nolan films, and he loves 60s stuff. So yeah, the hot take, this version that you're seeing of Batman that you're seeing is some people's preferred iteration.
And indeed, the roots of a kid-friendly, light-hearted Batman appear very early in the comics. There's also all sorts of really good light-hearted Batmen. The Adam West Show is great, as is the film's spin-off from 1966. And for all Batman the Animated Series' reputation as a mature and adult series...
It's not always mature and adult. There's a lot of tones, and it's such a good show. It explores lots of things, and you know, of course, the Joker in that show is a nice contrast to him. Yeah. Yeah,
I completely agree. It's not quite as mature as your memory has it. It's actually not just like individual episodes. There are like you say, every episode has a range of kind of tone to it.
yeah, it's not just a one tone for the whole thing. Since this kind of feels like an opportunity to talk about the series for a minute. Any standout episodes from what's an episode of the animated series that you like?
The one I really remember that I had on videotape for years was the Batgirl two-parter.
Oh, I was also kind of thinking of that one. I mean, you mentioned videotape, and I remember that one being on tape, yeah.
I remember that one being on tape. I remember the cat and the claw, the one with the red claw. Not that it's particularly good or anything. I had that on video as well, so I remember that one a lot. But yeah, it's that Batgirl one.
Yeah, that Batgirl one. Yeah, I remember watching that on tape, renting it from the video store, and that part when they're on the boat and that guy like is on top of Batgirl and he's like, "Let's see who you really are," and he pulls off the mask and he sees her. That made me so mad. Like, get off of her, you fucker! Like, no. But then
I always remember
he kicks him off the boat, and I was like, yeah, jackass.
Yeah. I always I have it burned into my retina the bit where she checks back through the videotape and notices the guy ducking before all the shooting occurs. That's the bit I always remember from that episode. And her talking to a teddy bear. Like, that was like a running thing, wasn't it?
Another one that kind of I remember having an emotional reaction to was the laughing fish. And it's still kind of scary, but there's this scene where they're trying to protect the mayor or something. They're inside a building, and one of them gets, like, there's this silhouette of Batman, and the cat jumps on him and like claws him, and then Batman starts laughing because apparently he's been hit with like the laughing gas. And then it turns out they hid the hostage in Batman's costume, and like he has a permanent smile. It still kind of freaks me out hearing that. And I'm also like, I was kind of confused by the scene too. I was like, why is Batman laughing? And it's like, why would they put the hostage in the Batman costume? That's really stupid. And like, Batman's actually the one dressed up as him. Whoever. Yes. Yeah. Lots of great standout episodes.
There are plenty of silly episodes too. Lighthearted Batman can work. Silly Batman can work. The question is, does Schumacher's Batman pull it off?
Not exactly, I don't think so, because both of the films kind of feel like it's stretching the tone. Like, it wants to be one thing. Like, it wants to have an emotional subplot with Alfred dying, but also have, the campier, ice puns, and it's a bit messy with its tone.
And the answer
I think Batman and Robin really suffers,
And the answer is complicated. For all their reputation as live-action cartoons for children, the Schumacher Batman movies contain a lot more darkness than you might remember. Forever especially spends a lot of time on Bruce Wayne's psychology, particularly the continued trauma from the death of his parents and his inability to find peace. This isn't just lip service to the character's origin story either. It's a driving concern of the narrative, at the root of Bruce's romance with Chase and his mentorship of the orphan Dick Grayson. The former plays out with Bruce revealing his trauma to Chase in an attempt to come to terms with it. The latter with Bruce relating to Dick through their shared pain.
You can't understand. Your family wasn't killed by a maniac.
Yes, they were. We're the same.
For all the aesthetic differences, this story is a direct continuation of the Burton films. In the first film, Batman finds the killer of his parents.
You know what I just realized? Kilmer says, we're the same in this scene. And that's a line he has in Batman Returns to Catwoman at the end.
We're the same, split down the middle.
We're the same, split down the middle.
We're the same.
For all the aesthetic differences, this story is a direct continuation of the Burton films. In the first film, Batman finds the killer of his parents and takes revenge. In Batman Returns, we pick up with a Batman for whom vengeance has brought no closure, and has in fact only pushed Bruce further into seclusion, living only as Batman. Batman and Bruce's one attempt to reach out and form a bond with a kindred spirit is dashed, because their shared traumas, the thing that helps make them kindred spirits, also splinter into fundamental differences, which prevent any chance of healing or normalcy together. In Batman Forever, Bruce actively faces this history, that his habit of projecting his trauma onto his enemies before he defeats them has not actually healed his pain.
Then it will happen this way. You make the kill, but your pain doesn't die with Harvey, it grows. So you run out into the night to find another face, and another, and another, until one terrible morning you wake up and realize that revenge has become your whole life. And you won't know why.
The struggle to reconcile the divergent aspects of himself is externalized in the climax, as the Riddler's final game is structured around forcing a collision between the worlds of Bruce Wayne and Batman, symbolized by saving Chase or saving Robin, in the hopes that all will be destroyed in the process.
Neil, who would you save? Say it.
I would probably save Chase.
Good answer.
I would save Chase. I can get another orphan.
But the costume, Neil. The costume is so good. Don't you want to see more Robin in that costume?
Alfred, make me another costume. I'm afraid I didn't bring back.
I didn't know you could be this cold-hearted. Man, I don't know if...
Yeah.
Should we do another one of these? This is... I'm a little freaked out right now.
Who would you save? I'm guessing Robin.
Chase.
Will be destroyed in the process, and where the solution is for Bruce and Batman to merge together, not out of pain, but out of choice. There's a lot to like about this story.
Just really quick, Robin is meant to be a young boy, so like the choice between an early 30s female and like a teenager, yeah, God, that's a tough one.
And where the solution is for Bruce and Batman to merge together, not out of pain, but out of choice. There's a lot to like about this story. It's a rich arc for Batman and Bruce Wayne, which builds on prior foundations while simultaneously blazing a new path for the character.
It's just unfortunate that it's compromised in the final film, and most, of the scenes that were deleted, most of it were Bruce Wayne stuff. And of course we got most, if not all, of Riddler's stuff. It's a little heavy on the Riddler,
Yeah.
It also allows the character a measure of peace and healing while still maintaining the excitement of Batman, and leaves space for future adventures.
Yes, yeah. And then in Batman and Robin, I was asking myself, where do you go from here in terms of his character arc? And in the follow-up, they wanted a lighter Batman, and Clooney was very much on the same page, saying, like, Clooney wasn't interested in the childhood trauma of Bruce Wayne, and so I just wish...
I mean, I think that in Batman and Robin they're trying to sort of, like, they don't do it very well, but the idea is Batman Forever, he's wrestling with his parents' death still, and comes to some sort of, or in the deleted scenes he comes to, some sort of like resolution about the whole thing. But then Batman and Robin, it's meant to be Alfred, his father figure, is dying in front of his eyes, and there's nothing he can do about it.
Yeah.
But unfortunately it's such a light-toned movie that, George Clooney just wobbles his head and smiles.
And he looks down too. He looks down a lot in that movie.
But yeah, that's the idea of like swapping, having him be like, being traumatized by his parents' death. To Batman and Robin, he should be traumatized by Alfred dying in front of him. Those are the two sort of like halves. But they don't do it very well because it's such a light movie. They don't want to be a downer.
True. They don't want to spoil the fun. They want a lighter Batman.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing like with Mr. Freeze. Mr. Freeze really should be, quite cold and grieving about his, terminally ill wife. But again, it needs to be light. So at the same time, he's also making jokes and, having a hockey-themed gang and a scantily clad gangster's mole on his side. So yeah.
In theory, this is a great Batman story. But in practice, said story clashes wildly with the film's silly side.
Right.
You have these scenes where Bruce is processing his pain and grappling with his identity, only for the film to throw to Jim Carrey doing extended improv sessions, or actors giving these wacky line deliveries.
Oh no! It's boiling acid!
Oh, there's Bruce Wayne! Brucey!
That guy's my favorite of all the...
That guy is my favorite, and I don't think he's credited in the film. We need to find out who the Batman guy is.
Be nice to find out. Yeah, it's not the boiling acid guy. It's someone else.
No, it's not.
Pumping in deliberately cartoony sound effects.
Yeah, the sound effects kind of bother me.
The actual plot of the film is patently ridiculous, and I don't just mean Riddler's scheme to place his box device in the homes of Gotham, which secretly suck the brainwaves of anyone who uses them. I mean that the film presents this as a mystery for Bruce to solve. This guy is capable of probing his own psychosis, but can't figure out that the weirdo who was clearly obsessed with him, who had an intensely dangerous and unethical science experiment he pitched to Bruce, whose boss died in mysterious circumstances, who suddenly and inexplicably received the capital to build a corporation to rival Wayne Tech and build a machine that's affecting the minds of everyone in the city, including Bruce's own, he can't figure out this guy might in fact be connected to this Riddler fellow committing robberies with Two-Face and sending Bruce threatening messages.
I think the moment Bruce got that green riddle in his office, he walks from the scene of the crime. He goes, Stickley suicide. It doesn't make sense. And when he sees that riddle and he reads it, that's the moment he would have been like, Edward, did you write this? Yeah. And that would have been kind of clever if he pieced it together right then. But then, But then Ed convinces him. Edward does something to clear his name, so Bruce thinks he's innocent, but is still kind of like, there's a scene that shows that he's innocent. It wasn't him, but it's kind of throughout the film, Bruce is still kind of has his eye on Nigma. I think that would have been interesting.
Including Bruce's own, he can't figure out this guy might in fact be connected to this Riddler fellow committing robberies with Two-Face.
You really are quite bright, despite what people say.
No, he isn't, Alfred. Don't lie like that. And like I said, silly Batman is okay. I would not take umbrage with this storyline and these cartoony elements if they were part of a lighthearted romp that wasn't meant to be taken seriously. But Schumacher does want you to take the film seriously, or at least certain parts of it, and the resulting mix is completely unstable. The goofball antics make it nearly impossible to engage with Bruce's story sincerely, while the somber flashbacks to the death and funeral of the Waynes keep intruding on the cartoony thrill ride the rest of the film is trying to offer.
You could say this film has duality.
Duality, I mean, it could be intentional.
I don't think it was. I think it's a mess.
Okay.
But, yeah, wouldn't it be interesting to have a movie that's just Bruce's and Batman scenes and like
Yeah.
without the Riddler and stuff, but then like also have a separate movie that's just the villains kind of goofy antics. That'd be kind of interesting. It would almost seem like two different movies.
Yeah, I don't agree with him that the film would have been better if it was just a light-hearted romp. I think movies should be giving you, lots of different stuff to think about and enjoy. I don't mind that the movie has kind of multiple tones to it. I think that as an audience member keeps me engaged with the film. But like some of the Bruce Wayne stuff, it's kind of somber and moody. But then if you have a somber, moody Batman story, well, then you're just in the kind of like Matt Reeves, somber Batman. So I don't mind the clash. But hey, that's just me.
Yeah, it's finding the right balance, not going too serious, not going too light. And I think this movie would be better balanced if it just had more Val Kilmer and less Jim Carrey. It's like they were close. The film comes really close to having a nice balance, but it is off balance, in my opinion.
Keep intruding on the cartoony thrill ride the rest of the film is trying to offer. The balance certainly leans more to the silly side, but this wasn't always the case. Schumacher actually shot more scenes concerned with Bruce's psychology, including further revelations about the Red Diary his father kept and its final entry, and a culminating scene where Bruce revisits the part of the cave he once fell through as a child and encounters a giant bat. You can find a lot of these deleted scenes on the Blu-ray, and there also exists a much-fabled Schumacher cut of Batman Forever, which reportedly reinserts a lot of this psychological material and runs close to 3 hours. A rough draft of this cut has in fact been seen by a select few, but it's unclear if it'll ever get a proper release. I'd certainly be curious to see it if it does. The scene where Bruce confronts the bat in the cave is beautifully shot and very evocative, even in its incomplete state, and I also think some of the cut scenes would help flesh out the story.
Here's a question. If they hosted another... If you found out there would be a screening of Batman Forever, like, let's say in, like, New Jersey or some faraway place that you'd have to take a plane to, would you go if you had, like, I don't know, 3 days notice?
Maybe. I kind of feel
I'm sorry, that's a no.
flying that far, like, would it be disappointing? Because the thing I've heard about this cut is that it is kind of like, there's a time code on it. It's kind of rough.
It's a work print. Yeah.
It's got Danny Elfman's score for one thing going throughout. I worry it would disappoint me.
Well, what about those? Because I've heard the podcast. Two guys, epic film guys, they said we saw the Schumacher cut at a screening that Kevin Smith hosted, and they mentioned that there were shots that should have been left in the movie, like after Robin is fighting Batman in the alleyway, and there's like it goes on for much longer. It'd be nice to see that extra stuff that was left out. There's a scene when Batman comes out of the cave and he says, "I'm Batman," and a bat swarm comes out from behind. A swarm of bats comes out from behind him.
Yeah.
There's more of Bruce running his company at Wayne Tech. Like the scene right before he meets Nigma for the first time. All that stuff. It would be amazing to see. And so I would urge you to come to it. And you'd probably say no, but man, that would be exciting for sure.
It's knowing that it's out there on someone's thumb drive being passed around.
Yeah.
It's just like everything on the internet is like basically at your fingertips, apart from this one tiny thing. Why can't that be at my fingertips? But hey.
Yeah.
Complete state. And I also think some of the cut scenes would help flesh out the story. Particularly notable is an extended conversation between Bruce and Alfred, where the two discuss if Batman is actually a curse and an enemy of Bruce Wayne.
Maybe I didn't become Batman to fight crime. Maybe it was to fight that fear.
And instead you became the fear.
If that's true, then Batman is my enemy.
This is in fact an extremely important setup for the climax and Riddler forcing a choice between Batman and Bruce Wayne. The theme of duality is certainly present in Batman Forever, but the idea that the two sides of Bruce's personality are in conflict is only really brought up in this cut scene, and its absence makes Riddler asking if the two can coexist feel a bit random and unmotivated. So I can see the Schumacher cut improving the film to some degree, but the core tonal clash would still very much be present. The balance between the dark and the light might be more even, but the issue with Batman Forever is less that the ingredients are out of proportion than that the ingredients are fundamentally mismatched. In theory, Batman and Robin fixes this mismatch. The film pushes much further into cartoony extremes than even Forever did, and Bruce is no longer dwelling on his childhood trauma. Even aesthetically, the film pulls more liberally from the Adam West TV series in its cutting and cinematography. This should be the pure, light-hearted, silly Batman adventure. Except the major thread running through the film is that Alfred's sickness is slowly killing him.
Alfred's sick.
Alfred's not sick. He's dying.
That he's dying from the fictional McGregor syndrome rather than an actual disease does make it at least a little less real, but it's still a very heavy subplot to put in the center of any Batman movie.
Yeah, the fictional disease kind of softens the emotional blow. As like, he's not dying of leukemia or lung disease or something real and visceral. It's, you know.
Much less one which also includes a gorilla striptease. Alfred's illness also leads to a lot of dialogue scenes with Bruce, where the two discuss life and legacy, including lines like, "What is Batman, if not an effort to master the chaos that sweeps our world?"
And it goes even further in the book. There's a nice bit where Alfred's on his bed and Bruce says, "Alfred, if I never told you I love you, old man, I love you with all my heart," and that's not in the film, and it is kind of, it's quite sad.
An attempt to control death itself.
But I can't, can I?
None of us can.
Why have scenes like this when the rest of the movie presents Batman as uncomplicated childhood fantasy? And on a related note, let's talk about Mr. Freeze. Freeze is one of the most maligned aspects of Batman and Robin. From the endless ice puns, to Schwarzenegger's bulldozing performance, to the character being reduced to a simplistic doomsday plot. It was just 5 years prior that Batman the Animated Series had completely reinvented Mr. Freeze.
And I think without the animated series, like, we wouldn't have got Two-Face in Batman Forever, and we also wouldn't have got Mr. Freeze in Batman and Robin. So this show was a powerhouse in terms of ratings and kids' impressions. Everyone loved it, from kids to adults. So these villains really upgraded the villains in particular, with Heart of Ice and whatever the Two-Face two-parter was called.
Transforming him from a one-dimensional baddie,
Two-Face Part 1 and 2,
with a freezing gimmick, to a man tortured by the tragic loss of his wife and a condition which left him physically isolated from the rest of the world. For that character to be reduced back down to a one-dimensional Saturday morning cartoon seemed actively insulting. At the peak of my hatred for these movies, Freeze was maybe the single element I hated the most. But maybe that was misguided. Surely, the casting of Schwarzenegger is indicative of the filmmaker's intentions, right? The goal was not pathos, it was an over-the-top baddie for Batman to overcome, and Arnold's goofy charisma is oddly perfect for the task. Physically imposing, yes, but also deeply silly. The man really sinks his teeth into those ice puns, and is clearly having a blast playing such a diabolical villain. He isn't failing at playing Mr. Freeze as a tragic figure, he's succeeding at playing him as a Saturday morning cartoon. Maybe that's not my favorite interpretation of the character, but it is the one that Batman and Robin is going for. Then again, if that is what the film is going for, why still give him the tragic origin story from Batman the Animated Series? If the goal was one-dimensional villainy, why have Freeze mourning a wife stricken by disease and encased in an eternal slumber? It's like the film is trying to thread the needle between the goofball Freeze of the Adam West show and the anguish of the character's 90s reinvention.
I've always kind of felt this way about the film in general. It's I think the script that Akiva Goldsman turned in wanted to go in one direction, kind of more akin to the animated series. And by the time they got to filming, I don't think the script was exactly what Warner Brothers had in mind, I suppose. Like, Bob Daly wanted another Batman Forever, but make it even lighter, so it makes even more money. The script, on the other hand, I think wanted to go in a slightly different, more mature direction. And, Schumacher isn't going to side with the writer. He's going to side with Bob Daly and say, yeah, okay, I can make you another cash cow like Batman Forever. So let's crank up the goofiness. And I think the later revisions after Arnold was cast, which was Joel's idea, is what led to more of the ice puns and kind of making it for him. So that's where this clash is coming from. And I think this guy is, I think he's correct in his assessment that it's trying to thread the needle between the 60s stuff and the 90s stuff.
Yeah.
A more nuanced actor than Arnold might have been able to pull that off, but at a fundamental level, this mix just doesn't work. The brain whiplashes between images of melancholy and pain, images lifted directly from the animated series, to Freeze conducting his hockey player henchman in a performance of the Snow Miser song.
Louder, come on, sing, sing, sing!
The film successfully creates an entertainingly one-dimensional villain, only to undercut it with failed gestures towards depth. Just let Arnold be silly. It's why across both Schumacher films, the best performance is Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy.
Everyone seems to think this. And her performance is good. I have problems with the character being in the movie in the first place because I don't like the idea of her tearing apart Batman and Robin, but I don't know. How do you feel?
I'm not a huge fan of her. I know it is a very, very over-the-top performance that some people really seem to respond to. But yeah, I've never really enjoyed the character or the performance that much. I wouldn't say it breaks the movie for me or anything, but I don't love it when she's on screen.
Right.
But I probably, particularly in the kind of pre-Poison Ivy, where she's just Pamela Isley, I don't really enjoy that bit.
Mm-hmm.
But once she's in costume, it's a bit better.
It's a bit better once she's Ivy?
Yeah. What about you?
Well, you know how I feel, but it's there's, I don't know, I kind of fell off my train there. Maybe I need to watch this again. I think I'm seeing a pattern here. It's like Mike Stoklasa, when Red Letter Media did the Batman and Robin commentary, and he praised her performance. It's like other people are now kind of agreeing with him. I think that maybe it's like they don't know that Mike kind of started that. Because seriously, Mike was the first person I had ever heard praise her performance, and now all these other people are doing it. This guy, Eyebrow Cinema, and Nate the Film Nerd were like, "Oh, she's the best thing in the movie," and I never felt that way.
Both Schumacher films, the best performance is Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy. Thurman's work is so specific. with line deliveries that evoke both classic Mae West films and drag performers, that Ivy becomes a camp spectacle. Every look, every gesture, and every word is deliberate, ironic performance. This is most widely discussed in terms of gender. Thurman's portrayal of a hyper-feminine seductress is such a knowing performance that Ivy becomes a parody of femininity, itself suggesting that all gender is performance. Schumacher's direction reinforces this commentary. Ivy is explicitly sexual, but she's not sexualized by the camera, or at least not for the pleasure of the presumed hetero-male spectator.
I kind of disagree there. I think he's right in saying that she's not sexualized by the camera, but then he says,
camera, or at least not for the pleasure of the presumed hetero-male spectator.
I'm doubtful of the observation that hetero males wouldn't enjoy her scenes. In fact, you know, as a kid watching this movie, like, in my living room with my brother there, I was like, this scene, she's like, yeah, I was embarrassed for sure. It's like, I don't know. You know when you're a kid and it's like this, you're watching like a PG-13 movie. It's like, another example is in Liar Liar when he gets in that elevator and that lady with the cleavage is there. And yeah, like when you're a kid, that's embarrassing. But when you get older, you're more comfortable with sexuality. Yeah. And it's like, to this day, I didn't want female sexuality in my Batman movie. It makes me uncomfortable. I mean, today it's fine, but this is a movie for kids. I don't want Uma Thurman and this, like, and there's that interview where Joel is like, the concept for Ivy was the most beautiful woman in the world, and I wanted Uma Thurman because I thought she was the most beautiful woman in the world. You know, it's just one of the problems I have with this character. The other major one is that she is a foil to the Batman and Robin relationship. That is not the direction I wanted the film to go in.
At least not for the pleasure of the presumed hetero-male spectator. The spectacle of Ivy is less the character's eroticism and more how Thurman performs that eroticism, and how the audience is made aware of that performance. But this camp effect also extends more broadly. Ivy's eco-terrorist motivations are technically intact, but their expression is so heightened and over the top that they too are rendered as pure performance, in this case as signifiers of villainy rather than any coherent ideology about environmentalism. Because the film
I wish Ivy did something for the environment, like maybe have a scene of her. The movie is very light on actual plant stuff, and that's supposed to be her thing. Like, her element is, I mean, she's Plant Lady and he's Iceman. There's plenty of ice in the film, but not enough plants, you know what I mean? Like, if she had an effect on Gotham, or she like did something that, okay, there's that scene called the Flower Ball, right? The whole point of it is to like preserve life, I suppose. It's sort of like a pro-life festival in a way. They're bidding on those women, and the proceeds of the bids go to like Wayne Foundation doing like plant research and whatnot. I wish that was more her thing. And she, I suppose, because Ivy shows up in Gotham, we see that it's having some kind of effect. Like maybe there's a scene in the park or something and it's daytime and it's beautiful in a way. And so when she has to be stopped at the end of the film because she's a bad guy, it would sort of be more, it's like the morality would be a bit more vague. It's like, hey, Ivy's insane, she's kissing people and they die, but she's good for the environment. It's like, I'm saying that there's potential here for some kind of...
I always feel like the movie should end rather than Mr. Freeze trying to freeze Gotham, it should have ended with kind of like Poison Ivy doing kind of like plant stuff, growing plants, you know, her mutant plants throughout Gotham, and then if you're going to have kind of Mr. Freeze turn good at the end, have him be like, right, Batman, I'll help you stop her with my ice ray.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah.
And then it just gives the film just a bit more. You've got these two contrasting villains. You might as well kind of have a... the movie starts with that big ice scene. You might as well end with something a bit different, so it feels...
Yeah.
Feels different. But anyway...
Arnold was...
Batman Forever starts with Two-Face and it ends with Riddler.
Yeah.
Whereas Batman and Robin starts with Mr. Freeze and it ends with Mr. Freeze, because it's the Mr. Freeze show.
What the fuck was I going to say? I said Arnold was such a big star that it had to end with him. So he gets most of the plot.
They too are rendered as pure performance, in this case as signifiers of villainy rather than any coherent ideology about environmentalism. Because the film very clearly doesn't actually care about environmentalism in any meaningful sense. It's just motivation to justify Ivy's character.
True. Batman and Robin is not an environmentalist awareness movie. I mean, think about the cups and the trash. It was just like Batman Forever. It was like an economic orgy of, hey, let's brand this movie on Pop-Tarts, potato chips, fast food. All that stuff isn't good for the environment. It just makes more garbage.
True.
And that frees Thurman to just be fun. On that note, I want to shout out the second best performance in Batman and Robin, John Glover as Dr. Jason Woodrue.
I've never heard anyone complain about Woodrue or John Glover. Yeah, I don't think anyone has anything bad to say about Glover.
Glover, who also, fun fact, played the Riddler in Batman the Animated Series, is also giving an over-the-top camp performance, employing all of the signifiers of the mad scientist, that the result is a parody of the archetype. And it's a joy to behold.
Well, I can respect your opinion. Sadly, I'm not good at rejection. I'm afraid you'll have to die.
There's a gleeful abandoning of the traditional standards of good acting that's especially fun to watch with actors this entertaining when they go over the top. It's in moments like this I see the appeal of a camp spectacle and live-action cartoon, but the films never fully commit to this vision. Schumacher keeps reining things in.
Oh, that shot is so good.
With efforts at the more straightforward thrills of an action blockbuster, both diluting the camp elements and placing them in a context where they just read as bad rather than knowing and fun. The split between camp entertainment and conventional blockbuster is best embodied in the images of Batman and his allies running toward the camera that end both Schumacher films. The imagery is evocative of the cartoon intro to the Adam West Show, ostensibly aligning the films with that camp comedy. But it's also cooler and sexier. The characters are in silhouette, outlined by the blazing light of the bat signal as they run in slow motion. The music isn't a jokey theme song repeating the character's name, it's Elliot Goldenthal's epic orchestral score. There's also a moment in Batman Forever that pokes fun at Burt Ward's Robin, frequently exclaiming, "Holy blank, Batman!"
Holy jack-in-the-box! Holy red herring! Holy stuffy! Holy ravioli!
Holy rusted metal, Batman! Huh? Ground, it's all metal! It's full of holes, Holy!
It's a cute joke, but it's also telling, especially in conjunction with the end shot. A way of saying that these films are like that silly old Batman show, but a souped-up and modern version of it. Slick action blockbusters offering superior spectacle and excitement. And with that in mind, it's worth asking, how are Schumacher's Batman films as action movies? Let's start by returning to Forever's action climax. I've already mentioned that the scene lacks adequate setup with Bruce and Alfred's earlier dialogue scene being cut, but a greater issue is how the set piece flounders as an action scene. Riddler poses Batman with a challenge. Chase and Robin are each suspended above separate deadly drops. How can Batman possibly save both? And the answer is, he just sort of does. Blowing up Riddler's machine reveals the floor is part illusion, and
the illusion with the floor was always a bit confusing for me. it wasn't until a couple years ago that I realized what was going on. And part of the reason is when he is going up the shaft, he's hanging on to that chain. There's a shot of him popping up through a trap door. So it's like, oh, okay, he got up there through a trap door. But then later, it's like an illusion. There's two very brief shots. You can kind of see, that illusion with the floor, that was like maybe 10 or 15 frames. That's half a second. And you can see it's at the very bottom of the frame, too. We see it again later. I just don't think it was conveyed very well. It took me decades to realize that the floor was an illusion.
One is in fact falling down the same hole. So Batman can dive down and grab Chase and then Robin before either hit the bottom. It's not an awful scene exactly. There's clear production value in the explosions and special effects, and the editing conveys danger and suspense reasonably well. But the solution to the problem feels like a cheat. Riddler presents a challenge. Batman circumvents it through gadgetry, then wins with relative ease. There's no cleverness to how Batman solves the problem, it's unclear how he even knows what to do here, and the visceral action lacks excitement. The first Spider-Man movie also has a scene where the villain attempts to force the hero to choose between saving one of two parties in a death drop freefall, but there, you see how arduous saving both actually is. There's tension and drama in the sheer physicality of the act that is entirely lacking in Batman Forever. Once Riddler's floor trick is revealed,
I kind of agree with him. For the record, I love Spider-Man 1. My favorite scene, and this is kind of part of the climax, but my favorite scene is at the end when he's fighting Green Goblin in the abandoned building, and it's all bloody and visceral, and he gets really close to beating Spider-Man too, but he gets really mad and just like basically just says no. It's like none of the fight scenes in Spider-Man 2 or 3 are as good as that one, in my opinion. But
actually is. There's tension and drama in the sheer physicality of the act that is entirely lacking in Batman Forever. Once Riddler's floor trick is revealed, there's no real obstacle for Batman to overcome, and the ensuing theatrics are more a mechanical necessity, an obligation to fulfill the structure of a superhero movie. The scene is also indicative of a recurring problem in the Schumacher Batman movies, where the dangers Batman faces are easily solved by a gadget which has not been introduced before and will never be used again. It's easy to criticize Batman and Robin introducing new vehicles and costumes for the climax in a transparent effort to introduce more toys, but that wouldn't be such a problem if those toys were justified within the text. This tech could have been part of the story, created specifically to
absolutely agree with him. The tech could have been part of the story. In fact, in the novel, there's a throwaway line that Batman stepped up the production on the new vehicles in Alfred's absence. And it's just a nice little hint that there's going to be something introduced later, just to let the reader know that there's new vehicles he's working. Oh, okay. And then when they show up later, it's a little easier to accept.
in the text.
But yeah, there's one shot of the Bat Hammer, his new Batmobile, like deflecting the ice beam of one of the thugs, and it bounces back at him. But besides that, the suits and the vehicles, besides having little ice skates that they can drive on, they don't have enough functionality to justify their existence. I just wish the vehicles had more to do in terms of countering Mr. Freeze. Like, one of them could have had a heat gun at the end of it, or like maybe have a heat. It's like while they're driving, the flames coming out the back of the new Batmobile could have been melting the ice in a way. That would have been okay, even though they thaw the city with the sun later on.
This tech could have been part of the story, created specifically to counteract Mr. Freeze and his arsenal.
Hey, I just said that, buddy.
That is technically the role they serve in the film, I guess, but they aren't established beforehand, nor do they address anything specific. Batman just has anti-freeze tech now. The end result of gadgetry being consistently relied on to solve all problems is it subconsciously trains us not to invest in the action scenes.
Do you agree with him here?
Gadgets. I mean, to compare it to James Bond. James Bond always gets the gadgets from Q,
right?
That he specifically needs at a certain point. And like I don't know, it's like a running gag, isn't it, in the Bond films until recently. Mm-hmm. So I don't know that it's ever really bothered me that he has the gadget. That's just, yeah, it's just the James Bond-esqueness of the thing.
I'm reminded of the climax of Batman 89, and when he's climbing the cathedral, he really just has to use his bare hands and like maybe a bat grapple once in a while. He does use a gadget to defeat the Joker. I do think I don't want to agree with Eyebrow Cinema per se in this regard. But maybe I am, but thing is, at the end of the cathedral scene is mostly Batman having to buckle down and use fisticuffs rather than having a gadget that protects him from everything.
It's the cinematic equivalent of a child playing a game and yelling "shield" whenever it looks like he'll lose. There's never any tension because we know Batman will have a get-out-of-jail-free card, and there's no engagement as a viewer because said card will just be pulled from out of nowhere. This problem is only exacerbated by the absurdity of Batman and Robin.
The beginning scene when he's trapped in the bank vault, he doesn't have a gadget for that. He has to use the guard's hearing aid to kind of pick the lock. And then he uses a bat grapple. That's one example of him having to get creative, I suppose.
From out of nowhere. This problem is only exacerbated by the absurdity of Batman and Robin's action. While Batman Forever at least keeps one foot in a relatable physical world, Batman and Robin descend so far into cartoonish spectacle that it becomes white noise. The opening set piece alone transitions from a fight scene in a museum to a rocket ship firing into space to Batman and Robin surfing through the air as they chase Mr. Freeze. And keep in mind, this is how the film starts. How is an action scene supposed to convey any tension when the characters can do this? And it's unfortunate that the action is so ineffective, because on a rewatch, the craft of these films holds up a lot better than I remembered. Particularly impressive is Barbara Ling's production design.
Barbara Ling, you are my hero. Your Gotham is the best. I want to live in that city. It's amazing.
Which expands the scope and feel of Gotham City. The use of large models and miniatures allows the camera to move vertically through the space and really lends a sense of scale to the city. There's also some early CGI cityscapes which admittedly have aged quite a bit, but they also allow Gotham to feel even more vast. On a design level, the neon signs and lights I once so despised are in fact a treat, a great way to add pops of light and color to the city while still allowing Gotham to exist as a city of the night. Then there's the giant statues of human bodies. We technically get glimpses of similar statues in Batman Returns, but Schumacher really runs with the idea. These massive sculptures of perfect bodies towering over the streets.
It's terrifying, but like really amazing in a way. There's a phobia, I don't remember what it was called, but it's basically a phobia of really big objects in a way. These huge things. Like think of a battleship or a cruiser, and now imagine you're swimming and like you're underwater and you look up and you see that big ship, that kind of stuff. Stuff that makes you feel small. It's I was on Reddit one time, like thinking we were on the topic of Batman, the Schumacher movies, and someone mentioned that phobia, and I'm like, yeah, absolutely. That does apply to these big sets. It's just one of the things I admire about the design.
Elevating Gotham's fantastical and otherworldly qualities. Combined with the anatomic shape and muscles of the bat suits, the films create a world of Greek statuesque perfection, imbuing a mythic quality to the narrative. This is also reflected in some of the locations. The fact that Arkham Asylum looks less like a hospital than it does a dark castle for the forces of evil to gather.
The Arkham in Batman and Robin is pretty creepy too. The interior scenes, not as much, but the exteriors are effective.
Than it does a dark castle for the forces of evil to gather. There are little details I like too, like how a lot of interior locations still have windows which remind us of the world beyond, or how Forever still uses a few real locations in addition to constructed sets, tethering the film's fantastical world to a relatable reality. There are also things I could nitpick. It bothers me that Two-Face's helicopter crashes into the Statue of Liberty rather than a statue unique to Gotham, and the illusion of a fantastical Wonder City is hampered when you see fast food chains in the background. Still, at least they are relegated to the background. Product placement would certainly get a lot worse in superhero movies.
Oh, hello, Man of Steel.
Standards do also start to slip in
This movie's so fucking bad.
Batman and Robin in superhero movies. Standards do also start to slip in Batman and Robin. The sets are still technically impressive and boast clear production value, but they feel more like amusement park attractions than actual places. There's less effort to disguise that we're on backlots and sound stages, and it does distract from the fantasy. Overall, though, the production design is a clear highlight of both these films. On that note, let's talk about Schumacher's visual style more broadly.
Hot entrance.
Batman Forever was actually nominated for a Best Cinematography Oscar, and while I always found that an absurd nomination, rewatching the film it started to make a bit more sense. Lighting in particular is very atmospheric, and does a great job walking the line between moody gothic and lighthearted escapism. Bruce's flashbacks are actually a really good example of this, technically shrouded in darkness, but a dark blue rather than pure black, allowing for some color while still conveying a gloomy mood. The film also uses shafts of light to suggest a heightened reality, and generally injects a greater cinematic texture to the picture. I'm not sure I would have nominated the film over movies like Seven, Heat, 12 Monkeys, Casino, Strange Days, Nixon, Crimson Tide, Dead Man, Dead Presidents, The Quick and the Dead. Alright, the nomination is still kinda ridiculous, but I at least get the logic. Batman Forever does emphasize sensational imagery, and the results range from the sleek and the sexy to the exciting and the mysterious to even being a little spooky. It's a good-looking movie, and that makes Batman and Robin all the more disappointing. The money is still clearly on screen, but Schumacher and returning cinematographer Steven Goldblatt are far less precise in their lighting and framing. Too many scenes are shot wide and flat at eye level, on sets blasted with light.
What could have been is, I was watching the making of Batman and Robin documentary, the one that's on the DVD and whatnot, and they mentioned the film came out a little too soon. I think specifically Chris O'Donnell and Joel said that the film, people weren't quite ready for it. And so, like, I thought of, would it have been better if they were to release the film instead of June 97, like release it in December 97? I think that would have been a risk, and it probably was one that they weren't willing to take, because all the other Batman movies before this were summer, these are summer movies. Yeah, it's like, go figure, release Batman and Robin this June. It's just that it was a little too soon, and if it were released in the winter, I'm not saying a miracle would have happened, but first of all, those 2 weeks ahead of schedule, that this film finished, they would have had more time to, like, you know, we wouldn't have had shots like the straight on. Man, if they just had the presence of mind to, like, push the film back a little, like, get more production time, and also release the film later. Question is, would 6 months have been the difference between, like, people being ready for it? Maybe not.
I don't know, because it felt like they were on a track of, we're gonna make it like this, we're gonna cast Arnold, it's gonna be bright and fun.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it would have made a huge difference, but it would have been interesting to see. Yeah.
It's probably just
another draft of the script.
Yeah, probably just wishful thinking on my part.
Yeah.
You know, Joel said the sky was the limit, and they felt like they were unstoppable almost. Like, there's no way this movie can fail. We got all the best people working on it, and you know, Batman Forever was a hit, and you know.
At eye level, on sets blasted with light, which has the added effect of revealing the inherent limitations of the costumes. When Batman and Robin aren't shrouded in darkness or framed deliberately, they look ridiculous. The ethos is still sensational imagery for its own sake, but the presentation is so plain that the images underwhelm, and paradoxically, this clearly very expensive movie ends up looking cheap. Key example of what I'm talking about. Batman gets knocked on his back, Poison Ivy attempts to seduce him, Batman has to break free and apprehend Ivy. Let's see how it looks.
No.
First you tell me where Freeze is, and then you're going to jail.
It's just so awkward. Clooney struggles to get to a vertical base. We even hear him grunting as he heaves himself up. While Thurman just has to wait for Clooney to get into position so the scene can continue. And look, I get that the suit is heavy and cumbersome, and Clooney is beginning the scene from an unideal position.
It's all about how you frame it, and the editing, shit like that. This wide shot does not work. Like, just have that close-up of him, that straight on, when he's like, why are all the gorgeous ones homicidal maniacs? Is it me? Have that shot, have him lean forward, and then cut to him, like, already kind of halfway standing
stood up.
Yeah.
But why shoot the scene like this in the first place? And when the best take is still this awkward, why not reposition and try something else?
2 weeks. Could have used those 2 weeks to fix this one.
It's indicative of the haphazard way the entirety of Batman and Robin was shot. And for a film that is defined by the sheer power of the imagery, that's basically a fatal blow. Because these are not movies you want to let stand on the strength of their screenplays. The main plots are basic doomsday schemes, but the devil is in the details. Batman and Robin is just overstuffed with baggage, with Batgirl and Bruce Wayne's girlfriend Julie Madison proving especially unnecessary. Julie has 2.5 scenes. In the first, she's introduced as Bruce's girlfriend, and we see Bruce is uncomfortable with the idea of marriage. In the second scene, she presses Bruce about marriage, and Bruce reiterates his discomfort while hallucinating about Poison Ivy. We see Julie one final time briefly when the giant telescope is revealed. That's it. There's no payoff to this relationship.
Is he going to mention the deleted scene?
It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't contribute anything except that it shows Ivy is in Bruce's head, which we get elsewhere. Julie is an entirely superfluous addition to a movie already stuffed to the gills with characters. Batgirl is
Oh, yeah, he didn't... Well, anyway, a lot of us are aware of the deleted scene of her at the, I guess, opening of the observatory. Ivy is there as Pamela, and she breaks up... Yeah, Bruce is, like, falling for her, and Julie sees that, and he chooses, right in front of her, he chooses Isley over Julie. I thought that was a good scene. It shows how Ivy is sort of has an impact on Bruce's personal life as well. And also it explains her sudden exit from the film. That would have been her last scene, so she doesn't just disappear from the film. It's a shame. I really like that scene. It's in the book, so there's at least that.
Ostensibly more important in so much as she actually, does something, but her presence is not well integrated.
Yeah, the movie called Batman and Robin should be about Batman and Robin, in my opinion.
Between her introduction and her reveal as Batgirl, the only characters she interacts with are Robin and Alfred. She has no scenes one-on-one with Bruce or Batman.
That's true. There is one scene in the book she has where Bruce comes into her room just to check on her, and she's gives him the cold shoulder because she's hacking her way into the Batcave files. That's a nice little scene that I wish was in the film, but it was just to read that book and to find that scene. She has a one-on-one scene with Bruce. It really made me happy that it may have existed at one point in the script.
And only interacts with Ivy at the end when they fight. And that, in and of itself, is weird. The conflict Ivy stirs between the dynamic duo is one of Batman and Robin's most emphasized narrative threads. But instead of paying it off with the two uniting and defeating Ivy, someone else who Ivy doesn't even know just does it instead.
Yeah, that is pretty disappointing.
It's true.
I get that it would be difficult to stage an action scene where our heroes unite to triumphantly beat up a woman, but there are ways around that. The animated series certainly found ways to create...
They don't have to beat her up. They can outsmart her. Yeah. It's like maybe Robin's standing in front of the flower, and she thinks that he's gonna kiss her, she charges one of them. They move out of the way, and then she falls into her own trap, basically. Outsmart her.
Yeah.
Just so that you don't have a scene of George Clooney punching Uma in the face. That would be kind of poor taste.
Repeatedly.
But there are ways around that. The animated series certainly found ways to create action scenes between these characters. Schumacher claims he wanted to have Batgirl so little girls would have someone to identify with too. And given how involved toy companies were in the film's production, I'm sure more merchandising opportunities...
And yet, there's 2 Batgirl figures.
Yeah.
Sorry, Joel. I don't think this is... Yeah. I don't know about Batgirl in the movie.
...was also a factor. I get the logic, but the writing has not made adequate steps to integrate Batgirl's character into the story. Forever does not suffer from superfluous characters, and unlike Batman and Robin, the film actually offers a character arc for Batman himself. On the other hand, Batman and Robin actually improves on Forever's screenplay in a couple of ways. At least Batman and Robin's supervillain team-up is a bit more motivated. Poison Ivy is invited to the charity auction by Bruce Wayne and attends to scope out potential enemies in Batman and Robin, while Mr. Freeze is lured to the event to steal more diamonds. The two meet organically, and Ivy is attracted to Freeze as a partner and a means to achieve her own goals of world domination. In Batman Forever, Two-Face and the Riddler are on completely separate tracks for the first act of the movie, until Riddler sees Two-Face wreaking havoc on TV, likes what he sees, and decides he'd like to team up. It's not until about an hour in that the characters actually meet. Riddler's opening scene also sets up his principal motivation, that he is obsessed with Bruce Wayne and is devastated when that love is not reciprocated, vowing revenge.
You were supposed to understand. I'll make you understand.
But after he becomes a supervillain, Riddler doesn't actually do anything to Bruce except send some threatening riddles that tease at his true identity, then act like a dick to him at a party. The film establishes motivation, then does next to nothing with it until Riddler discovers Bruce is Batman. Of course, the screenplay...
Yeah, I've commented on this a couple times, but Riddler's almost a completely different character from what he starts out as,
Until Riddler discovers Bruce is Batman. Of course, the screenplay is a secondary concern in films like these. What matters is that Two-Face and the Riddler are put together so their personalities can clash. And clash they do, in endless scenes of mugging to the camera and hysterical screeching. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what makes it so rewatchable, though. I just can't get it out of my head. That's just what I said.
Yeah, in case it isn't obvious, I'm not a fan of these performances. It's evident that Tommy Lee Jones and Jim Carrey were cast for their fame rather than for fitting the parts. Jones had just won an Oscar for The Fugitive, while Carrey had just released Ace Ventura. By the time Batman Forever hit theaters, Carrey had emerged as a comedy superstar, and indeed, he spends most of the film doing his shtick of flailing limbs, facial contortions, and goofy voices.
You know what's fun is to take the cast of these movies, like Val Kilmer, Chris O'Donnell, Jim Carrey, Tommy Lee Jones, and just look at the movies they did before they were cast in Batman. It's really enjoyable. Like Val Kilmer, he was in Tombstone. Chris O'Donnell, he's in that one movie with Al Pacino and Philip Seymour Hoffman. And Nicole Kidman was in a year prior. She was in Eyes Wide Shut. You know, Tommy Lee Jones in The Fugitive. It's so cool to see them all in the same movie, because all these other great movies they were great in. And instead of watching Batman, while you're watching these other movies that came before, it's cool to see the performances that they'll be remembered for, forever. Yeah. By the time these actors die, we look back at the legacy and what led to this and what led to that. And after they were in Batman, what they did afterward. I know.
There are a lot of people who win awards and then seem to go into superhero movies. Obviously, the big one was, the one that I always remember was Halle Berry, who won for Best Actress, was it, for Monsters Ball, and then signed up for Catwoman the year after.
What a disaster. Yeah.
Yeah.
Die Another Day wasn't good for her career either.
No. No.
But I suppose it's not that it's not good. Like, exposure in a Bond movie is nice. It's like what Batman and Robin did for Clooney. I was reading a Instagram post the other day. I think I sent it to you, but May 6th is George Clooney's birthday, and so I saw a post about him, and it was about him and Arnold, I think. And there was a quote included from George that said, "Batman and Robin was a waste of money." But it did put me on the map. Because I did Batman and Robin, I graduated from being on ER and doing TV stuff to film, and he could really be a movie star after Batman and Robin. So
that's true.
It's manic, annoying, and fails to portray any character. There's certainly precedent for a manic Riddler in the comics and in the Adam West show, but there's still an underlying intelligence. Frank Gorshin was animated and over the top, yes, but he also conveyed a ruthless brilliance and a smug air of superiority, a clear belief that he was smarter than everyone else in the room. I don't get any of that from Carrey. In fact, I don't get any character at all. I just see a comedian improving bits.
I don't disagree with him, but part of me wants to reach out and pick a scene from Forever that'll prove this guy wrong. I am kind of defensive about Carrey's Riddler.
Yeah, I think it's a fun performance. And I know it's one of those things where you assume he is doing improv, but all of those lines are in a Akiva Goldsman script.
Really?
Joygasm. Yeah, Joygasm.
Spank Me?
Yep, it's all there.
Wow. I feel like what this man who did the video, I think what he's looking for is examples of Riddler figuring stuff out. There's that scene when he breaks into Wayne Manor and he's he's on his own while Two-Face does his thing. Riddler, it's kind of vague how he discovers the Batcave. Like, his cane has a little sensor thing with blinking lights, and then the door to the Batcave just opens.
Mm-hmm.
It may have been better if he had the knowledge ahead of time of where the cave was, because he absorbed a lot of Bruce's secrets in a way. I think that would have been
the whole
better.
Absorbing people's mind doesn't really get explored that much in the movie, other than we just hear him say, "Oh, I've got, credit card numbers and stuff," which is but they could have shown more of what they actually dig out of Bruce's head.
I love that line where he says, "If knowledge is power, then a god am I." I wish there was more of him using the knowledge. It's like, think about it. How godlike could you be if you knew everything? What if there was a scene of him fighting Batman hand to hand and he is able to hold his own because he knows Batman's every move? How awesome would that have been?
Would be very cool.
Yeah.
Everyone else in the room. I don't get any of that from Carrie. In fact, I don't get any character at all. I just see a comedian improving bits. It's quite tedious, and I'm not alone in thinking that. Jones himself expressed a distaste for Carrie on the set, famously telling Jim, and I quote, "I cannot sanction your buffoonery." That's a great line, but frankly, I can't sanction Jones's buffoonery either. His Two-Face is little more than a third-rate Joker ripoff.
All this, I'm completely fine with these criticisms. Doesn't change how much I love Jones in the film.
Yeah.
I can't I can't convince anyone of my enjoyment, or, I mean, maybe I could, sway a few votes with, like, if I did, like, a whole YouTube video essay that was an hour and 2 minutes and 57 seconds about why Tommy Lee Jones' performance is
Why
great.
Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah, but I'm not interested in doing that. It's just how I feel. Another thing is, like, I love the look of him, his vibrancy, the pink.
Mm-hmm.
The one half is rather suave. He has 2 girlfriends. He's enjoying the role. Maybe a little too Joker-like and not enough duality. But yeah, I just love his look in this film. Much prefer it to the one that we got in The Dark Knight.
Maniac causing chaos for chaos's sake and obsessed with killing the Bat. Schumacher talks a lot about the character's schizophrenia and duality, but that's all only external. Jones's performance only has one mode. So far, this revisit has not proved especially revelatory.
Alright, and then there's like 2 more chapters of this. I don't know, do you want to finish this next time, or how are you doing?
Yeah. I don't mind. What time are we on now? About 10:30 here. I don't mind. I don't mind either way, man. What have you got on today?
Let's say we flip for it. Heads continue, tails call it.
Okay, heads.
Oh, it's like the touch of God. Wait. Oh! Fortune smiles, another day of wine and roses. In your case, beer and pizza. Ha! It was tails, so we're gonna do it next time.
Okay.